now, the Duval Rundown, driven by Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, home of the lifetime warranty.
Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Duval Rundown. I'm Hayes Carline. Please be joined as always on Friday with Rick Ballou. You can hear Rick into the night with Rick Ballou. Rick, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great, Hayes. Fired up for the weekend. This is what it's all about. It already feels like playoff football. And, I looked at this game from every way possible. I think it's a one-possession game. May come down to a field goal late, fourth quarter. We'll see. But could be a whole heck of a lot of fun. I know that.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, obviously Cam Little could play a big role in that. I'm anxious to see what he hits in warm-up. Because and maybe he gets the opportunity in a game. You don't know, if he's going to be put in that situation. But, boy, can you imagine Cam Little lining up for a walk-off 73-yard field goal?
Could happen. I'm trying to remember the year I was out there. It might have been 97, might have been 98 or 99. But when Jason Elam either tied or broke Tom Dempsey's record, it was I think it was a 62, 63-yard field goal back in the late 90s. So, the year has been out there. Now. What's that?
That's
a chip shot now. Yeah, no doubt about it. So, it's so interesting because Denver, in so many key statistical categories, is outstanding, especially on defense. But they do lack in two major categories. They're number 2 in penalties behind Jacksonville. And they're a bad turnover takeaway team. They're at -2. You compare that to Jacksonville that has 26 turnovers and is +10. So if it comes down to one of those two things, that could end up favoring the Jags. I do get it. They're a very penalized football team as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how the game is called and things like that. And I'm anxious. Liam Cohen's going to meet with reporters in about an hour. And that's one of the things I'm curious to ask him about is, do you pay a lot of attention to who the crews are, particularly when, you obviously have been heavily penalized. You're playing a team that also has been heavily penalized. It hasn't hurt them in the win-loss record necessarily. But that isn't a really intriguing part of this game and a good thing for fans to be aware of. Be ready, because this is probably going to be a very long game and a flag fest.
Yeah, and look at last night, and Puka Nacua came out and said it, and it felt like he was right. I mean, this was a really good football game a night ago, and it went into overtime, but it took forever to play the last 7 or 8 minutes of the fourth quarter. There was just, every other play that felt like there was a penalty or if not a review. So, that could take the flow out of the game, and it's the opposite of the Jordan rules. We saw it as early as week 2 when Travis Hunter got called for that pass interference call in Cincinnati. It's a part of the reputation that you don't want to have. And both of these teams have it. They're number 1 and number 2 in penalties, averaging combined more than 16 a game. So I would expect that. But, if there's an over-under on penalties on Sunday, I would take the over in this football game.
Yeah, I think you'd have to, based on the history of these teams this season. You've talked about this on Into the Night, and I think it's a really good point in terms of the offensive line and protecting Trevor. They've had, I believe, 5 games now where Trevor Lawrence has not been sacked. That's tied for second most in the NFL this season. Massive challenge, though, coming up, because what it seems like the Jaguars as a team are 16th offensively in sack percentage. So they're sort of average when it comes to allowing sacks, yet they have 5 games in which Trevor's been totally clean. So the concern I have is that once they give up the first one, they tend to give up 4 or 5 more. And Denver is certainly elite at getting after the quarterback with 58 sacks, which is just astronomical. How do you anticipate the Jaguar offensive line being able to handle this Broncos pass rush?
Well, I think it's a huge test. And if you go back to that game at Houston, they did a real good job for 3 quarters. Then in that fourth quarter, they had 6 sacks. I think Danielle Hunter had 4. They had 20 pressures. They just completely gutted the Jaguars. And as you pointed out, 58 sacks by Denver. They're number 1 as well in sack rate ratio of being able to get to the quarterback. But the Jaguars have really improved an awful lot as of late. Vance Joseph, Denver's only 8th in blitzing as far as percentage, but their at bats equal hits, which is a much higher percentage than other teams that do blitz quite a bit. So I think this is a massive challenge. I would assume that you would agree with me that Cole Van Lannon has to be the left tackle this weekend, and to take on Benito and that responsibility is going to be enormous for him in this game. So it could come down to that, and protecting, and Jacksonville has been able to do a much better job over the middle with short passes, obviously with the addition of Jacoby Myers, and that has helped out. But in this football game, I think the best thing that you can do to counter that would be to be able to run the football. And again, we talk about Denver and all these numbers. We know Jacksonville is number 1 against the rush defensively this year. Denver's number 2. So if you look at it on paper, the feeling is neither one of these teams are really going to be able to run the football, which is going to put that much more pressure on your quarterbacks and offensive line to pass protect.
Yeah, without a doubt. Big news last night is the Jaguars reportedly agreed to an extension with receiver Jacoby Myers, who's obviously been brilliant since being added at the trade deadline from Las Vegas. What'd you think of the deal?
Oh, I thought it was outstanding. I mean, there were 4 guys that I continue to look at, now 3 that they have to do whatever it takes to bring back. And Myers was either 1 or 2 on that list. It's going to be very expensive to bring back Devin Lloyd. And then I have Buster Brown and Cole Van Lannon on that list. I don't have ETN. I know you and I have talked about it before. It's more of an indictment of the position, not in his age, not about him personally. But boy, Myers, and I'm still really surprised that he brought this type of attitude and how it's worked. You talk about culture, and typically you only talk about that when you're losing. You need to change the culture. Well, this team was winning, and they brought him in, and he's affected the culture in such a positive way. It just feels like it's rubbed off on others when they're blocking downfield more, they're route running, no matter what it is. I mean, this guy is a complete wide receiver who gives you dirty yards, goes over the middle, always blocks, runs great routes, has fantastic hands. That was a great signing last night by the Jags. How about you?
Yeah, I think he's been remarkable, and can't wait to see what he can be in future years, particularly with a full off season. But it's amazing how it's incredible how some guys that can play this game just don't need a lot of time to be ready. It almost makes you wonder, like, do you need all the OTAs, and do you need 6 weeks of training camp? And some guys, I guess, do, but I mean, I can only imagine how bored Jacoby Myers must be the second week of training camp, where he's like, yeah, I know all this stuff. I'm ready. Mm-hmm. It's remarkable to me how quick he's been able to pick a very complex offense up and perform at such a high level. So, yeah, and again, I think they figured out what Trevor Lawrence needs at that position. He doesn't necessarily need like the greatest athletes at that position. He needs guys that he can trust, that are smart players, and Jacoby Myers is certainly that. He's incredibly reliable, and he's been a godsend. It's hard to imagine where this offense would be without him. So very excited that he's locked in now for a 3-year extension. In regards to Trevor Lawrence, are you buying this, that Trevor has turned a corner, and this great play in the last 3 games, 9 touchdowns, no interceptions, is where his career is now headed with Liam Cohen? Or do you think he's on a hot streak but may not continue?
No, I'm buying it. And, people will say, well, look at who they've played. Well, you can only play what the schedule gives you. And, it was a 3rd-place schedule. They have had some easy opponents. But what I've really liked about it is that, unlike classic Jaguar football, playing to your level of competition, losing a few of those games, they've gotten out early and pulled ahead, and they've looked like such a better football team. I really want to buy in here on Trevor Lawrence. Now, Sunday is going to be a huge test for him because it's such a difficult place to play. Denver's won 11 in a row. They're the only undefeated team left in the NFL at home this year. It's going to be nice as far as the weather, which certainly does help Jacksonville. But I want to believe that Trevor has got this thing going, and whenever he speaks to us, he keeps mentioning the word confidence, and it's believable to me. As a matter of fact, just about everything Trevor's ever said, except for maybe some of that Urban Meyer stuff where he was a rookie and just didn't go down that road. I've always believed what Trevor Lawrence has had to say. So this is nice to see. Hayes, my concern though, and I've mentioned it quite a bit as of late. If you look at, and I wrote it down, the last 3 ball games, it's been 44 carries, 134 yards for Travis Etienne. He's averaging 3 a carry. Now, that's lost in the fact that Jacksonville's been blowing out their opponents. They're scoring more than 33 points a game during this win streak. I still believe when you get to these, January football and you're playing really good football teams, you're going to have to be able to run the ball. Defensive coordinators across the league are going to say, we're going to stack the box. We're going to put it right on you, Trevor Lawrence. You beat us. We're going to defend the run. So we're going to find out. And this is going to be a week-to-week journey. My guess would be there'll be another valley somewhere down the road here. That's just the way it is for quarterbacks, and I think that includes Trevor Lawrence. But absolutely, I'm very impressed. And the fact that when you brought in Myers, that he's averaging out of any quarterback in the NFL over the last 6 weeks, the largest average per attempt at 8.4 out of all 32 starting quarterbacks in the NFL is something I never would have believed in as late as, let's say late October. There's no way I would have believed that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move it to the Jaguar defense in this matchup. But before we do that, Jacob Simon's out today, so we've got Brady pinch hitting. We certainly appreciate Brady helping us out on Duval Rundown. Brady, let's hear from our sponsor, please.
Baloo for Jacksonville Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Westside, your locally owned commercial truck headquarters and proud partner of the Jaguars. For hard-to-find ProMaster vans or commercial trucks for your fleet, visit jaxwest.com today.
So, Rick, as you look at this Jaguar defense in this matchup, let's start with Bo Nix. What's your concern level with Bo Nix? Obviously, he's coming off a great game against the Packers, but the offense for Denver has been sort of up and down. Are you buying Bo Nix as an up-and-coming elite quarterback in this league?
I am, but he needs to get much better. And, 18% of his passes are behind the line of scrimmage. 63% of his passes are 10 yards or less. He doesn't throw the deep ball. He's a Mac Jones. He's a better version of Mac Jones on a really good football team. Now, they were down 9 against Green Bay, and he finally threw the football downfield, and it was with some positive results. What makes him really good is for our old school listeners, he's got a lot of Fran Tarkenton in him. You flush him out of the pocket, he can really extend plays by, his wiggle, his movement, his ability to get out of the pocket. And I know in a lot of instances that is perhaps his biggest concern, that is being a consistent quarterback in the pocket and throwing downfield. But, this kid's always had a lot of swagger. No one played more college football games in their career than Bo Nix. This kid's played a ton of football, even though he's in his second year. I think Trevor Lawrence has a better skill set and is going to end up being a better quarterback. You can make the case that so far in his career, Bo Nix has been a part of a better football team. But you can rattle this guy. I believe that. He'll throw interceptions. If you can get after him and make him have somewhat of some happy feet, and then do things that he does not want to do, like throw the football deep downfield, I think that favors Jacksonville in this game. He is the master at dinking and dunking, one of the best in the NFL at doing that. And, if that's the game and they can't defend that, then it's going to be a long afternoon for the Jaguars.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see how well the Jaguars defend the run against Denver as well, because obviously, as you mentioned, the Jaguars are the best in the league at stopping the run. I think that it's now they allow 86.3 yards a carry. Denver's 17th running the ball, so it's a great run defense against an average run offense, and that's without Denver having J.K. Dobbins, who was having a great year before he broke his foot. he had 772 yards on the ground, a 5.0 yard average per carry, which is outstanding, and 4 touchdowns. So RJ Harvey, the rookie, takes over, a player the Jaguars really liked in the draft. He's dealing with a rib injury, but they expect he's going to play. But he's more of a finesse guy, more of a versatile, can catch the ball kind of guy. I think a big key is if the Jaguars can stop the Denver ground game, then I think they've really got a chance to get Bo Nix in some unenviable down and distance situations.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And then put all the pressure on him to pass the football. I think that here's my only concern is that I see both teams struggling to run the football. I also think Sean Payton and Liam Cohen, they're not going to abandon that. They're going to stay true to it. And you may go 2 yards, 1 yard, -3 yards. It may be tough sledding all day, but can one of these two teams break one? We saw ETN break a few last week. They were pass receptions, but can you have one of those days where nothing's working, but then all of a sudden, bam, you hit a 34-yard run for a touchdown, or you move down into the red zone, things along those lines. If you look at it average per carry, it's not really going to add up. But if you look at it more in game and you're really invested, it's kind of like a baseball hitter's and a 0 for 12 slump. And all of a sudden he comes up with 2 men on and he hits a 3-run homer that wins the game. I have a little bit of a fear of that actually taking place in this contest, because my guess is that neither one of these teams is going to have a lot of success running the football. And then you're going to see that most of the yardage is picked up when it comes to passing it. I really like Jacksonville's chances here, as far as their run defense. I'm more concerned about them, staying at home, reading their keys, being disciplined, gap fits, all that type of stuff. I mean, you're going to ask these cornerbacks now to hold on to coverage that much longer because of Nix's ability to leave the pocket. But yeah, I like Jacksonville's chances here as far as their run defense.
And we talked a lot about the lack of screen game success for the Jaguars, which was a big surprise to you and me based on how well they did it in Tampa last year when Cohen was the OC and what we'd seen in training camp. But it was good to finally see one pop. Now, you could argue, was it a swing pass more than a screen? But the idea is they got the ball to Travis Etienne on a quick throw, and he took it the distance for a touchdown, one of his 3. But it gave me some hope that maybe Liam Cohen is shifting from, okay, maybe a traditional screen, for whatever reason, teams know it's coming, whether we're calling it at predictable times, whether one of our players is giving it away with an alignment or their eyes or something. The offensive line isn't, bluffing the block long enough, whatever it is. The traditional screen game, they have had no chance with all year. It's been Trevor spiking it into the ground because the defense knows it's coming. But that swing pass caught the Jets off guard. Now, the Jets fired their defensive coordinator. They're terrible. I get all that. It may not work at Mile High. But I was at least encouraged, to your point, you may not be able to run it with great effectiveness, but it might be the team that's able to get the ball to the running back in the passing game that wins this game.
Yeah, this 2 huge surprises for me this year offensively in a negative way. For the Jaguars, outside of Diami Brown, who has proven that the world is flat because he fell off it. You look at third down offensive percentage, that's really down. Liam Cohen led the NFL last year, over 50% in that category. That has struggled, and that's a concern the further you move down the schedule and into the playoffs. Secondly is the screen game. I expected a ton of screens. I mean, I kind of envisioned Travis Etienne having 60-plus receptions this year. He's got 29 or 28, 29, heading into the 15th game of the season. But, it's shown that it's growing, that it's improving, and that they haven't completely gotten away from it. I'd agree with you. It was a little bit more of a swing pass last week, even though Liam Cohen alluded to it in the post-game press conference and came out and actually said we finally hit on a screen. It's still a big part of his offense. They're not going to get away from it. And that would be interesting. I would think in this game, because of what we said as far as the runs, I would expect Travis Etienne to have at least 3, if not maybe 4 or 5 receptions when it's all said and done.
Yeah. Rick, I like the Jaguars in this game. I just think Denver, it's hard to win. It's hard to win 11 in a row, which they've done, but it's really hard to win 12 in a row. To me, Denver's just due for maybe a clunker fourth quarter, and the Jaguars are able to get it done. So I like the Jaguars going out to win one of the biggest regular season games they've had in quite some time. How do you see this game? Who do you like?
Been wrestling with it back and forth. Denver has a #1 red zone defense in the NFL, just over 38%. They're making teams attempt field goals as opposed to giving up touchdowns. That could be the difference in this game, settling for 3 as opposed to getting 7. Also, the Jaguars, with all their positive numbers this year, they're one of the worst teams in the NFL, 5th worst when it comes to third down conversion rate in the fourth quarter. And again, Denver's outstanding. They're second best. These are huge numbers. They're ones that we don't talk about often, but I think they become crucial when you get to, playoff type of games like this is. I've gone back and forth, and I came down to this. #1, the weather's not a factor. It's not going to be cold. It's not going to be brutal. So that's been thrown out the window. #2, I just don't believe that Denver in this football game, they pick up, they allow a lot of yards. They do. They're bend but do not break. You look at defensively, all these great statistics that they have, they still give up a lot of yards. And when you have the weapon of Little, I think that makes Jacksonville that much more potent. So again, I really struggle with this, but I'm going to take the Jags. I'm going to take the under. I'm going to go Jacksonville 24-21. The difference in this game is going to be a Cam Little field goal. And I think the Jaguars snap that 7-game home win streak of the Broncos. And, maybe they're better off losing anyway. Who would want to go in the playoffs winning 14 straight games? I mean, I always said that in college basketball. I think you're almost better off losing a football game. So I'm going to take the Jags here over the Broncos.
Yeah, I like it. And I think getting back to what you alluded to at the beginning of Duval Rundown, the fact that the Jags are +10 in turnover margin, the fact that Denver is -2 could be the difference in the game if the Jaguars are able to hold those numbers and win this turnover battle by 1 or 2. I would expect that'll be a big key for them to get the win. But great stuff, Rick. We certainly appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you later today for Into the Night and joining us next Friday to hopefully break down a big Jaguars win at Mile High. So have a wonderful day, and thank you guys so much for watching Duval Rundown. We'll be back on Monday with Frank Frangie. Until then, enjoy the game, enjoy the weekend, and go Jags.